How's it going? Franchise?
JLove, what's up, my man? How you doing, brother?
Not much. I'm doing all right. Long weekend.
Right?
How are you doing?
I'm living the dream, man.
Nice. Well, we attempted something on Sunday on our Twitter page. How'd that go?
I was not my finest hour, so threw some pics out there online on our threw some pics out there online.
I took your advice. I don't have any money for dinner.
Oh yeah, that's
Not
understandable.
ramen.
Very sorry
Thanks.
about that. What I was gonna say is like on the pics that you probably should have done units of I don't know maybe $5, maybe $3. Going back, I used to bet like 300 or 400 a game. But clearly, if I would have done that this weekend, then I would be enjoying the same top ramen as my friend JLove over here. So you're quite welcome. Hopefully your house. Hopefully you're not renting that room out of your house. That's awesome, for yourself. But
No, I have weeks before my mortgage is due, and
perfect. Well, we can get you right back on track.
Money will carry me right to victory.
Just drink your way to victory. That's good. There are no.
You have to drink something. That's a lot of sodium.
Well, so ironically, had a monstrous day. Handing out pics on Saturday. Did not post those. I did send them to one of my good buddies. I don't think I even sent them to you. We could even put on. We thought we were going to be able to do a podcast, and just too busy of a weekend, so we didn't get a chance to put them out. So my 5-1 on Saturday would have looked like I was a damn genius. And then, unfortunately, Sunday rolls around, and my buddy JLove here, he's like, "Hey, we should do some picks out there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I wasn't quite feeling it. Like, usually it's like I sort of like no matter how many games are on there, I kind of look at like what do I really like, and then the setup and like when and where you play and how who you play and all those things. All those things obviously matter if you're making sports bets, but I think I was something like 2 and 5 on the picks that I put on our Twitter page, on our Franchise and JLove Twitter page. Obviously, same thing as the YouTube channel. So hopefully no one read that at all. And we get a clean, fresh start this week because it was not my finest hour. But, I had some things that were on there. Should have been more like 500 on the picks. I know I had you can rattle them off really quick.
Well, we can go through them. I mean, the first one I know that you felt good about Purdue in Michigan, Purdue -13.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, so Michigan is like the worst team on paper in the Big Ten. I knew there would be a huge Purdue following.
Did you know it was going to be a huge Purdue following like that, though?
Well, I didn't realize it was going to be 75-25.
Had I known that, I would have. Nobody can fault you for that.
Yeah, I did know it was going to be. I had heard possibly like close 50-50. So I knew that which is insane. Like there's so on their. I watched like the press conference of the players, and like there was like 2 cats on their team that were like, that crap was just flat out embarrassing to like have like it was like Mackey. It's like Mackey North. They literally said that there was that. So it was like they were like it was like 75-25. Because I guess Matt Painter, said, "Hey man, this it's pretty full considering that Michigan students were on spring break." And then the players were like pulled him aside. It's like, yeah, those are like mainly Purdue fans.
It's
and
crazy.
He's busy coaching a basketball game. So I knew it would be like close to a like 50-50 split or maybe 40-60 like Purdue.
Even that's crazy.
Which is insane already. Michigan,
yeah.
Chrysler Arena, always one of the hardest places to play in the Big Ten. So, I'm thinking like Purdue -13. I believe that Michigan has not covered as an underdog in the Big Ten yet. Not covered. And a lot of the spreads have been, 13, like whatever it is. They've not covered any of them. Like, they've played better at home for sure. Obviously, I know we beat them by 32, like at Purdue, more or less not trying. Now, they didn't have Doug McDaniel, but they had, if you watch the game, they had a lot of people, make shots that just don't normally make shots. And honestly, we'll get into the Purdue discussion of that game here in a minute. But 13 is a pretty decent sized number. But it kind of seemed like Michigan had more or less rolled over, and they've been terrible about like if they even had a lead in the first half, which they've had a small to decent sized lead, 5, 8, 10 points of leads in a lot of these games in the first half, and in the second half they just get like drubbed.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, Purdue got to that number 12, 13 magic number pretty early in the second half and just couldn't make that one play that just broke the game up into like 15, 18, 20 to where it's like kind of when the game going away,
It seemed like it hung at 11, 9 to 11 forever.
And so you're like right there, you're like, if you make a couple plays, you're even sliding into like a backdoor cover for Purdue, even if you get up 18, 20, So one of those things there where they won by 8, really should have won the game by 18 or 20, didn't happen. I was like, all right, well, so kind of a rough start. Now, I did text you. Wasn't my official pick because the game had just started. But St. John's was a small underdog. And I did say I think they're going to not only cover the like 3.5 point spread, that they were actually going to win the game, on the court. And they won handily, easily. Had I known that Rick Pitino was going to wear his like Colonel Sanders like white suit, that would have been like, put the hammer down, let the car rip on that one. But he's looking fresh there for a dapper old man there, But clearly was all over that one. But that one didn't quite make my pick since the game had just started. It was like 4-0 or something when I got that text out. But I was like, well, I'm not going to post something like that now. But still, they ended up winning the game going away. Had the what was the next one on the list there?
Then we went to the Michigan State money line.
Yeah. So the irony of this was earlier the week prior, I was like, Ohio State, knocked off Purdue at Ohio State. And you could tell it was like going to be sort of like a win-win for the Gipper, type game where it's like coach gets fired, a classic, everybody rise up spot. You got the number 2 team in the country coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a home run spot for a home team, and so I was not surprised by that Purdue loss. I'm not surprised we lost, but I was not totally blown out of the water that it happened. So typically what happens is those teams go on the road or play their next game, and they spent all their emotional energy, told how, big their package was like all week long throughout school. It was like, oh, you got the biggest wiener of all time. Yeah. So it's one of those deals where it's like, players hear that and they think of the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then that next game is an automatic letdown spot for them. I mean, you saw it happen. Creighton, beats the crap out of UConn. Next game, falls flat on their face, can't hit anything. Look at the world beaters. And that's just college basketball in a nutshell. But so you have a situation where it's like, I even told Josh, I was like, I think Michigan State is a bigger bubble team than you think, because if you start looking at their schedule moving forward, it's like, they have Iowa, and I'm like, they're probably better than Iowa, certainly at Michigan State, but Iowa's kind of like battling, can really score. Well, they let that one slip away, and I was like, if you look at their upcoming games, it's like, then they host Ohio State on the weekend, and I'm like, Ohio State's probably going to lose at Minnesota midweek, which they did because of the letdown spot, but like their players still believe, so they're not out of that. Like they're still coached by Jake Diebler, so they still have that same like belief. It's just like Minnesota's a pretty good team, an underrated team, so it's like so here we go. You go at Michigan State, and I'm like, there's really a scenario where I think Michigan State, if they lose that game, they get a week off, play Purdue, all of a sudden it's like they're getting into bubble territory, because then your next game, if and I thought Ohio State would give them everything they could handle. And so retroactively, I just really thought that, I really told Josh, I was like, I really thought that Ohio State could win that game at, even before, like 2 games out, so they're going to come off that loss, and then they're going to really show out, because it's kind of like going to be their like they lose that one, then they might start like tail spinning again. But just because like the coach has belief and you lost one road game, you can kind of hang on there. So, anyways, I sort of felt that game would be in the like 6 to 8 point range, and that if they could just get that knockout punch, they might get that backdoor 10-point cover, 9-point, whatever it was. I think 10, 11 points, something like that, 9, somewhere in that range. But so I really texted like while that game was going on still. I'm like, and Ohio State was just kind of in that striking distance. I'm like, they may lose this game like I originally thought, and I'm then it's going to put me really bad on our picks. But I was like, I figured Michigan State would find a way to win the game no matter what. Like when I sat down, thought about it on Sunday morning, but kind of rushed around, didn't really like get in the zone and dial in and make my picks, which I would normally do it. So still absolutely wrong. Ohio State had a really nice win. They had a crazy 3-point shot. If you watch the sequence, it was absolutely incredible. They almost got pinned in, didn't go to their first option, got it up to midcourt, got one more pass, and in 4.5 seconds they got a kind of like a, not really fade away, but not an easy 3-pointer. One you probably make like 10, 15% of the time at most, when guarded. And like when you're believing in yourself and your confidence is up, you just can't put yourself in a position to lose those games. But so I was wrong on that one right out of the gate. I was right about Nebraska winning. I thought Minnesota would keep the game closer, so I was off on that. I was off on that on a couple of those overs that I selected. You have them in front of you, but just a kind of little point of reference.
Yeah, you had Nebraska, Minnesota over 146.
Yeah, they didn't even sniff that. They were 20 points short on that. Like, I just thought it'd be a situation where they would both have to get in a scoring match. And unfortunately, overs can get in real trouble when both teams kind of need to score and you expect the game to be close. And if one team pops out to like a 15 or 20-point lead, especially the home team, a lot of times it's over in a lot of trouble because like the road team or the underdog starts taking desperation threes, taking real bad shots. And then the home team or the favorite team starts kind of like grinding out a win, using the clock as their ally to where it's like, a disciplined team is going to take some time off the clock. And, that margin you're just going to have that many possessions in order to hit it. So unless you get really hot and you stay within that range of hope, because once like hopelessness sets in, your desire to score goes, it just doesn't, you're just not hitting the shots. And so like in the other over I had, it was Marquette, right? And Xavier.
Yeah.
And that one actually ended up getting relatively close, still pretty short as far as like sports betting terms. I think it was like still 10, 12 points short. But like, if you told me that Marquette got 88 and then they couldn't get to that over, because I just thought that game would be a little closer there. But it's one of those things, if one team is doing all your scoring, you're usually in a lot of trouble on an over-under. So, not for sure. Obviously, not what I had hoped. Saturday's games, there were just some tremendous spots for the teams, which means everything. Didn't have those picks posted, but we'll be much better about that, whether they're, like whether we get a chance to do a podcast. Our whole intention is we thought we were going to be able to do one Friday, and it didn't get in there. And then so like obviously we would have talked about these things, and then I was like, I should have just sent you some picks. We could have put them on the website. And then like, hey, there's a point of reference. So I did send my buddy, and he had a great day. And I think there's a timestamp on that, but obviously I didn't get it to our viewers. So my bad on that. But we're all human. We're all human. So
I think that
your ramen.
Yeah, it's cold and it's fine. I think that not many people put their picks out there, so
yeah, well,
big nuts on your part, and we'll just continue to do it. Like everyone out there may not know, but I know, and over time, he puts a lot of thought into it. So, it's up to you if you want to pay attention and go that route, I definitely encourage you to. If not, stay broke, whatever. No, I think it's a process, and you're gonna have up and down weeks, and you were rushed on Sunday, but you put it out there, and I don't think anyone can argue with the rationale for sure. You're gonna have those days, and I think that I think everybody will see there's much better days ahead. So we're not.
It's going to be a gravy train with biscuit wheels. Don't worry. It's just one of those things where, there weren't like a lot of great slated games like on Sunday, and that with that extra day, this is one of those things where, a couple. I mean, really, it was like a couple of plays away going the other way and being a winning day, not a great winning day, but a winning day.
No, Sunday is. Yeah,
I actually have a theory. I usually Sunday basketball games actually don't mind. Saturday monstrous day, but I sort of have a thing when we come around to the football season and we start doing college football games. Even like, the viewers aren't going to know this, but I more or less was like essentially a professional like sports bettor. Like I didn't like I had a job, but I was doing 300 a game and was crushing parlays and I just had different responsibilities with my daughter and that sort of thing. So for me, it's like I changed my priorities, kind of got away from it for a good handful of years. And as my daughter's getting older, and we're doing this, I might really get hardcore back into it. I give advice to a couple of my really good friends that are into sports betting. And, any of them can test, they, especially live bet or any of this stuff that's I really know what I'm talking about when it comes to college football, NFL, and college basketball. It's get me outside of that. I'm I never claim to be any kind of expert, and I probably won some here and there. But on the other stuff, it's when I say something's going to happen pretty much in stone, it is Lock City. I mean, that is I will attest to that, and I will put locks out on here, and I was actually explaining really how I do the system is I'll pick any one handful of games that I really like. When I look at a Saturday spread, so there's tons of games out there. So I think what the average bettor will do is they'll want to put a whole bunch of stuff out there. But I think it's, better to build your bankroll or make several, mainly make a few bets, but make them larger increments and just be very precise, and because one of the biggest things I learned was I thought I could, pick Radford versus Austin P. And at the end of the day, unless you know people in those programs or follow them your whole life and really are on the message boards, really know what's going on or that person's sick or whatever, you can hit those things, but you have to be your focus or you have to be a part of that conference, in general. But in general, if you just get me, I can take any conference or whatever because I've watched enough basketball and I understand program history and I understand, position, where the game's being played, when you've played them, what their weaknesses, what their strengths are. So it's one of those things where I just have this premonition where it's I know things are going to roll a certain way, 9 out of 10 times, but every now and then, at the end of the day, they're still players and they still got to show up. But I can promise you on here, we will crush it, on those big, on any of the days. But going back to what I was trying to got off on tangent there, Friday night college football games, even when I'm just crushing it like I always used to do or still do, I just, as far as my picks, Friday nights are the weirdest night, I feel like it's where high school football should be played Friday, and it does obviously, but it's one of those things where Friday nights to me, it's almost I'll stay away from every game on Friday night just because it's now it's becoming a thing where people are playing more and more. Even some of the bigger conferences are playing Friday night games. Maybe as that comes to fruition more, I'll start doing some wagering on them. But it's just I think it's a weird night for college teams to play a football game for whatever reason. So I just feel you get a lot of unpredictability on a Friday night. So it's you won't see me making Friday night picks. So and a college football game very often because I just, I know nine self, and that's not a strength for me by any means. So
no, it's an odd spot to be in.
No.
Well, yeah, I think that it was just important to kind of cover that and
total accountability. So I was one.
Oh yeah, you're good, man. Like I just I saw this as an opportunity to be like, we're gonna be transparent and you hopefully build trust with the transparency.
I'm gonna own it if I'm wrong, and if I'm right, I'll try and keep it very humble, but keep it real as well. So
Yeah, and there's value in everything. There's value in everything. A loss is not a loss; it's a lesson. The lesson is maybe you just pick opposite of what the franchise style is.
There is that. I would
definitely Friday night football game. If you still have a house, come football season.
Yeah. Except for
if you lost your house between now and football season, don't think he's going to turn around on his Friday night picks. That's your lesson.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You heard it here first.
Now,
if Josh begs me to make a Friday night pick, I won't.
Nice. All right. Well, let's get to the review. Let's review the week in Boiler Ball if you don't mind.
Well, you were at the game.
I was.
So, I think you should open this.
Yeah, I mean, I went ahead and drove up for the game. About an hour away, so I don't make it to as many games as I'd like. I just have a lot of stuff going on, but just kind of worked out. I didn't have a whole lot going on this past Thursday, and I'm glad I went. It was a special crowd. Like I thought I saw somewhere on social media that it, set a record as far as decibel, for Purdue. It was loud. I mean, it was noticeable. I know Rutgers, they came, with, they came ready to play, and I can tell they were up for the game. It at a point, and they came out actually, locked in, hit some threes, a lot of offensive rebounds, and we actually, Purdue came out on fire as well. If Purdue doesn't come out hot at the beginning of the game, there's a scenario where, Purdue's down 8 to 12 points early. Yeah. But so credit to Rutgers for, coming out in that environment. I don't know how they did it. I mean, it was loud in there from the jump. Thursday night games, I don't know. That might be a trend. I'd have to look back on it this season. But, the weekend coming in, Thirsty Thursday, I mean, it was just like you could tell, people were either not going to class Friday or work. They just cut loose. That was their weekend on Thursday, and the rest of the weekend, I kind of felt like, we'll recover later. So Purdue had that going for them. That's what stood out the most.
But it literally, I mean, you've gone to tons of games there over time, just like myself. I mean, I've been to hundreds and hundreds, like, 500. Yeah. And Mackey is an incredible place. I mean, there's like literally almost no place like it. So everybody in the Big Ten knows that. Anyone that, knows and gets a chance to play a game there, they know it's just one of the best venues, period. So it's always like really, really lit. But I feel like, because Rutgers in a way is, in the last few years, first of all, they're very, very tough. So they'll like punch you in the mouth. It's like a lunch pail. So like when you play them, like it's almost like you don't like act, you don't like stumble upon a win across a motivated Rutgers team. Since Pikel's been there, you got to earn it. So like when you go and you earn it and you show out, like, that, like the Purdue crowd, just that's what it is. That's what being a Boilermaker is. years, and I've
Yeah.
seen that before. But like, I know they didn't have Mag, big time defensive player, good, excellent rebounder, excellent length. They were the number 2 defensive efficient team in the country, and to put a 96 burger on them, really not even. We could have had 110. I mean, I think pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then we had 52 at halftime, which I'm sure. In fact, I know Pikel's never given up that many points in it since he's been there ever.
No.
Like they give up 65 a game, so that's basically your game is done. And as soon as we stepped up defensively and they didn't hit some of their tougher shots, that was pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Well, I can tell. I'm not gonna pick on players too much, but at the first substitution, you can look back and see who was subbed out, but the offensive rebounds came to an abrupt end. I think they had 6 offensive rebounds in the first 7 minutes of the game. I kept watching the clock and the stat board, and I think they finished with 8 for the game. So 6 in the first few minutes of the game. Painter, at that first substitution, I'm certain that who went in. It was a point of emphasis, and that's the kind of stuff that's contagious, And then even with the offensive rebounds that were given up, there was we were still hustling. It wasn't like it was non-effort. I know Kaufman Wren was on the floor 3 or 4 times early on, just diving for loose balls. And those 50-50 balls, they just didn't go our way, but we were at least, putting the effort forth. But yeah, if to the crowd's credit, that didn't affect the noise. They didn't get dejected. It was surprising that Rutgers, even with all that, was hanging around, but you saw the switch just get flipped. I think Braden was the catalyst, honestly, to start. Just they kind of ran almost a half court trap. They were picking him up full court, and he handled the pressure just fine. Made the correct pass, got the ball back. He was setting up, just over half court, and he was patient. Got downhill for a couple quick, easy layups. Mid-range was very nice. Got, free throw line extended. 2 nice pull-up jumpers. Had a floater on the left baseline. And then from that, this whole time, everybody's just getting involved. Everybody's still engaged. There's movement away from all this. And I think it just kind of set the tone. Lance got going early. He had that step back, shook a guy, made him dance. Lance made him dance. That was nice. And then, Edie's just doing what he does. And it was an odd game because he didn't really get going early, but he was getting fouled, and obviously he's hitting his free throws. So they're not, crazy, impactful, memorable buckets in the first half, but he's just surgical. And you just, you can't do much with the team when it's, when they're just, everybody's involved and going crazy. And then going crazy, Heidi came in and just went nuts. I think that was probably, if you look at the Purdue week, to me, that was the highlight of the week, honestly, covering, both games and anything that may have happened during the game or outside of the game, just the buzz, being there at the game that's the benefit to me, is just you're at the game. You can hear what people are saying, positive or negative, what they're excited about, from a casual little old lady fan to just, locked in kids and, whoever, it's cool to hear those things. That to me is the benefit of going to the game. And you would have thought that we picked up LeBron. It's just everybody was so pumped about about Heidi coming on. Talk about it, because I know you've been on him. I mean, I don't think there's a player on the team that you don't know inside and out. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that and going forward?
Well, I think with Heidi, he's shown flashes of it in other games too, shooting threes. He's just on really low volume. There's been a few instances where he's driven to the rack, but I think what happens is there's and this could be a whole nother conversation. We might delve into it tonight as well, but like Fletcher Loyer has been a little bit in a slump, and there's been some knocks on like some defensive play, and I mean, some of that is warranted. But if you watch, Fletcher understands what's going on, so that's very important. So like if the coach trusts you, that's everything. He does winning plays, even though he might be in a shooting slump or whatever. But he's doing a lot of good things. And
he had 5 assists the other night against Rutgers. Against Rutgers, he did have 5 assists.
Yeah, and so like if you look at that, those are big things. That's winning basketball. Yeah. And the other thing is, if you're regarding like Fletcher Loyer, it's like I know you see a lot of people on there like, well, you should be behind, so and so playing, and obviously you could make an argument for that possibly, but a couple points to that is Matt Payne is a firm believer is like you keep on taking good shots, your makes are coming.
Yeah,
and I don't want to compare him to this player at all, but I know Carson Edwards had a massive February slump, like a massive one where he just had a number of bad games in a row. And then totally different kind of player, Carson Edwards versus like Fletcher Loyer. But if you look at the depths of threes and how quickly you can get a shot and how quickly you can get going.
Like, well, I think the better comparison that year would be that Klein game. That Klein game gets us to the Elite Eight. That game's coming.
Yeah. And so, and he had, he had other games like that, but like that Tennessee game, Purdue has no chance. I mean, that Tennessee team, I think was actually better than this year's Tennessee team. That Tennessee team,
they were ridiculous.
That Tennessee team was phenomenal, and it was just like we cannot guard Ryan Klein. And when you are, and you've seen it already this year, Arizona, Tennessee, when Loyer gets going, you just because all of a sudden it's like he gets in the passing lanes. He does the little things like it's like was getting steals in these games, so it's like that turns into like fast break offense. Like if we get you in a half court defensive game, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And we've gotten better at transition defense, but it's just, we turned it, and that's the thing what Purdue's done this year, or a little bit last year, but this year more than almost any year I've ever seen Purdue play, is if we get a rebound now with Braden Smith, we run that bad boy out, and it's like, you better get back on defense or we're going to hit you with something, whether it be 3 or take it to the rack or, and that's just instant offense when you do that. And some of the games at Loyer, like maybe it does affect, maybe for him, it does affect his defense because he's such a good shooter. That's like, he knows they're coming, but even this last game, like he missed a couple shots and he finally made that 3. He actually got to the foul line. And that's the best thing for a shooter ever. Watch a couple freebies go in at the free throw line. And that's a great thing for him. So like, I'm a big fan of like, and I think Matt Painter's seeing it too, or has seen it. And he's phenomenal. Like if they can get like a guy like Fletcher going early and, like he can boom, like 8-10 points, force immediate timeout. You're in trouble, but we were watching, going back to Cam Heidi. He's so athletic and he makes really good decisions. So it's like sometimes, it's just about getting reps for him. So he gets in a game situation, he hits a few threes. Now they got to close out in those. He gets that free lane to drive, and he's so athletic, you're just not going to stop him. I mean, you're just not like then later in the game, he had, after making like another 3, like he was actually defended incredibly well. They closed on it, and his reverse layup was Jordan-esque. It was absolutely ridiculous. He went from 1 foot on the other side of the block and finished with a little bit of like, hosel stint on that thing, like to finish on the other side, and went around, a more. I mean, like he's incredible, and a massive putback dunk, like so it's just like you see the athleticism. So like for me personally, I'm glad he comes off the bench because A, I don't really want to upset the apple cart, but B, it's like there's nothing better than having like an instant like guy that like is not really scouted. And those are always the players in this like tournament. It's like that fifth, sixth, seventh, that sixth, seventh, eighth man. They're like, these are damn good players, and a lot of these teams that are really good. And it's like they would start at a lot of places, and Purdue is no exception to that. These guys that our second team, I mean,
yeah,
Josh and I have already thought our second team, they would beat DePaul. I mean, that's just, but so any people watching DePaul fans, you can crap all over that, but I think we all know the truth to that. But either way, watching him like just get that confidence to make the read to like, hey, if I take this in here, it's going to put pressure on this defense. Like it's like with Purdue, you pick your poison, and if you got a guy like him that's that athletic that can also take it to the rack and make threes, you're a lot of trouble.
I think the encouraging thing with him is his confidence in his shot. I mean, I think that with an athlete, and just because he had that reverse and the tip dunk, there's different kind of athletes. And he is a special athlete, but you don't always get the discipline to trust your shot when you're that athletic.
Correct.
So for him to set his feet, it was masterful. I think he had 18, did he not?
He had 18 on perfect 4 game, shooting.
Yeah. So I mean,
4 from 3 they have 18 or
I think it was 18.
He had like 2 layups too. So did he not have? I mean,
he had
20.
3 layups. So yeah, he had 3 layups. He had the blow by on the first closeout in the first half, quick dunk, and then the reverse, and then 4 threes. So
okay,
yeah. So yeah, he had 18. I don't know why I know all that, but but my point is for someone that athletically gifted and young, he's a redshirt freshman. It is very hard to be disciplined and trust your jump shot, which he did, and the game has changed. I think that the old adage is let's play inside out. Like let's get your easy buckets first and then work your way out. The way defenses are geared towards stopping athletes and the way the floor is spread, if you can knock down the shot, you better take the shot, miss or make. You're on the floor because you can knock down a shot, and you're in the position because of that. And he showed discipline to do that, and it opened up, 3 just spectacular plays at the rim later on in the game, and that's just. And quite honestly, I think that scouting him going forward, like you said, he's not going to be a focal point because he's not a starter. But as the season goes on, and should he get more minutes, I think he's going to be scouted as more of an athlete. So let's not close out so hard, and let's give him the shot. And I just think that that's a mistake, and I think that that's a sound decision if you don't have a great point guard and you don't have good ball movement, and you can afford to bring your help off of your post players. It's just so many good things can happen because he's a competent shooter and obviously a phenomenal athlete. And then the other thing I would say about Lawyer, and I mean, it's overwhelming just here. And there was frustration going into this game with Lawyer's slump.
A lot of voices.
Yeah. And, after a game like that, everybody's, we got to start hiding. And yeah, there's the apple cart you don't want to upset. That's true. But I think that as a coach, I've given a lot of thought to it. When I've played super athletic teams, you don't really want to match up always with your athletes on your athletes. You want to look for your advantage. And if you have an elite shooter to occupy elite defenders that are athletic and keep them away from the rim, taking the ball off the rim, pushing it, and they're on the perimeter, stretching the floor, that's your mismatch. You're going to have to live with what you need to live with on the defensive end with Lawyer, but you have plenty on the back end to help with that. And I think for that reason, more than just the mental aspect of it, and I think that you got to stick with Lawyer at the starting lineup. It is tempting when you see that kind of performance, but I think that there's a scenario where obviously he's going to have his spike games. They're coming. But I think that it is sound coaching if you resist the urge to go athletes on athletes, because you're going to at some point in the tournament run into a loaded team, team of athletes, and I think that that's the way you combat it. I think that you don't throw Heidi in there and be like, hey, let's match up against. You got Caleb Love,
Yeah.
It's not going to end well,
Yeah. I mean, and so the other thing with Lawyer is like, who does get scouted in every game is Lawyer.
Yeah.
Big time. And, and so just the detail that time that they take away to make sure he's not effective helps everybody else.
Oh, absolutely.
So whereas if you were to adjust that, I see a lot of people get really upset. Morton gets X amount of minutes, which to me, in a way, drives me crazy because it's like basketball is not all about like scoring. Obviously, putting the ball on the hoop is the most important thing. But like, if you notice, Matt Painter is very tactful in when he puts in certain players in what position, like where they're at in like what foul situation is, what the game flow is, it's like when they got up 8 or 10 points to begin with, like Morton's like, well, this is the Michigan game, but like just in general, like in games that have been like that, and there's been a guard that really got out, like jumped out hot.
Yeah.
Well, he'll pull him in because the thing about it is if we stop what you're doing and we have a 6-point lead, we'll turn that into a 16-point lead by getting stops.
Yeah.
Because our offense is so good. Even if one person is not scoring at all. I mean, like that's, because if you get going back a couple of years ago, the Jaden Ivey team, unbelievable, one of the best scoring, teams. This team's actually right there with it, very efficient, maybe even I think they're actually better than them.
I don't think they played nearly their best game. I think Rutgers, for stretches, they were just a machine against Rutgers. It was a glimpse of what they can be, but I think they're just really scratching the surface. If you get that kind of contribution off the bench.
Yeah. And so like, there's just a situation where like when Purdue was not good enough defensively, like you go look and it's like, I'm going to pull up the exact stats, but there's the last like 15 national champions, maybe 20. I mean, it's a bunch in a row, have had top 10. Well, I think it's like top 10 offensive efficiency and top 30 defensive efficiency. And that team that even went to the Sweet 16 with Jaden Ivey, a couple of years ago, like that team was like 95th in defense. And we were going to like try and break the trend of like, all right, well, we got good enough offense, we can do it. Well, at the end of the day, we did not make stops. And our performance defensively against St. Peter's was poor. And, there was some chemistry issue, whatever it might have been. I know that, some things that happened that particular game. But it's like, if you can't outscore people, like if you're connected, like on and off the court, like Purdue's chemistry, I've heard is the best they've ever had on this team, or one of the best. And like that shows itself when you play defense. Because if you're communicating, if you trust the person to do their job on defense, no matter what happens, you're going to have tremendous chemistry because trust is everything. Trust from a coach to player to player to player. It's like, if you know that someone's going to do their assignment like at a 95 percentile level, that like you can have a mistake here or there, but it's not going to be an issue. It's like you talk about it, it'll get corrected, and it won't be like something that snowballs into like 10, 15, 20 blown assignments,
Mm-hmm.
And so going to your point, like watching the Purdue Rutgers game, Purdue, like when they're moving that ball around like they were in that game, like swinging it out, they were passing up very good shots to get great shots or the best shot they could get. And honestly, sometimes that actually hurts Purdue's team. I've seen it happen actually, foreshadowed the Michigan game or some of these games that have gotten tight that, maybe we've lost or like a couple of the last NCAA tournament teams. Now this team's different than that. But like there's been a little bit of tentativeness to possibly shoot that shot. I know Lance Jones doesn't have that tentativeness, but like if he doesn't have it going, then he's going to be a little bit more tentative. Or like even Mason Gillis or whatever. These guys have ended up having like big shots to win, to put the game to where it's like 4, 5, 6 point game, 7 point game to 10. And then it's like, okay, 2 minutes left, game probably over. Those guys have done a lot of those shots too. But there's been time when it's gotten tighter where we have been a little bit tentative because we'll almost like still force it to Edie some when it's like Edie needs to kick that thing back out so we can work it and get a better angle, better post up, a higher percentage shot. Because, and Purdue usually does a very, very good job of that. But there are times I've noticed where that it looks like that we're almost like afraid to miss a shot when we know it's like winning time. And I think there's a lot of people that can make it. I feel like Braden Smith's actually a person that's kind of stepped into that role and has done it. But at the end of the day, like you can't feel like you're the only one willing to take that. And sometimes it's like we'll almost look for the perfect shot. And it's like when we just don't look for the perfect shot, but look for the best shot we think we can get, we're almost unstoppable, And
I mean, I think
a fine line there,
Yeah. I think that one thing that's frustrating, I think it's so, as a player, if you have a weapon like Edie, it's so tempting just to not because you're lazy or you don't think you can do it. That just naturally, instinctively seems like the right play. And
it's oftentimes the right angle.
That's what I was going to say. It has to be that. Like there's some sloppy entry passes sometimes where you're just allowing help to load. I mean, he's always going to have a body on him no matter what.
And those are like auto turnovers.
Yeah, and they are. I mean, I would live with whoever is making that entry pass taking a shot from there because now at least Edie has a chance to get an offensive rebound. He's in position there. So if that's your goal, I mean, and that's just kind of a fine line, and that may be nitpicking, but I think that those are the kind of things that have to be cleaned up by the time you get into tournament play. But yeah, I think that is one thing that I've noticed is Edie, and Edie is not he's not a facilitator from the paint. He's trusting his team. I mean, he can be, don't get me wrong, but he's trusting his teammates. You can tell he's working hard for position, and he's trusting his teammates to get him the ball and that they're seeing that he's good to go. And he's just turning to his credit and going up hard. And, sometimes that results in a foul. Other time it results in a tie up or a deflection and they're going the other way. Yeah. So, and that's just being a little more patient, finding a better angle, swinging the ball and getting a better entry pass, from a 45-degree angle rather than straight on.
And sometimes that's more prevalent than others. I mean, this is one thing I will say is, sometimes people think, well, that's the length of a team that's affected it. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're just very, very physical. And, I think I will say, if anything, some of those things happen when people have been like overly physical and like they'll go with the standpoint of like, we can't just beat you by playing you straight up. Mm-hmm. So we're going to like be very physical and hope they don't call a whole lot of fouls.
Sure.
Which is if everything else breaks your way, you're hitting threes, we're not turning it over, like great, right? Mm-hmm. But if not, that's another thing you almost can't beat Purdue. But I think one thing I've noticed more so in this year's team is like I was watching the game the other day, Michigan, and we'll jump to that game, but like just an example, the ball gets clearly knocked out of bounds off the Michigan guy. Like, it's like, Gillis like swats the ball. You see it hit the guy's leg and change direction. And, Gillis is behind the play. So he has no body part that's in front that's going to be able to like actually change the direction of the ball. Whereas like whatever. And it's as clear as day. And the guy like literally gives Michigan the ball. And Gillis is just like, shakes his head. But like, they go back down the court where it's like an egregiously horrible call. Like, they show the replay like, wow. Like, and the announcers are like, they blew that one big time. And I know, and I actually feel like these kind of things happen a lot in Purdue games where the game's like at 8-10 or like, 6, 8, 10 points, 12 points, where it's like at a spot where it's like, if Purdue gets that call and they drill a 3, you're down 15, you're down 14, whereas it was 7 and they come in a 3, it's 4.
Yeah.
Or 10. And those things matter.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on the road. Because like, you can't get in your head about like how bad a call went, but it is very difficult as a player. You played, I played, and it's like when a ref just makes like an egregiously horrific call that it's like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done to get over it. And I do think Purdue's gotten over that quite a bit. But I think Purdue has learned that like they're going to call a game a certain way in a certain level of foul. And I think as the season's gone on, they've really adjusted to like what that is. And I think like when Purdue has been very aggressive right back, or especially if they open up that way and set the tone, it's just like usually whoever sets the tone is you're in a good place, and I just, like when like Purdue came out and then Rutgers played really, really well.
Yeah.
And they got dominated on the like 5 offensive rebounds before the first media timeout, which is just ridiculous. And so like they got, I'm sure Matt Painter was, on chewing their ass out, like saying like, that's effort stuff. That's not, I mean, like, and they're a very good rebounding team, but it's like, it offense is just like, when Purdue turns the ball over, like offensive rebounds are, that those negate turnovers,
Yeah.
Like it's gives you another possession. And it's like, you can't let people that are 6'11" and athletic as hell just get point blank shots at the rim. You just, if you do that, you're going to get eaten alive. But I think like sometimes I don't want to say there's like a mental fortitude, but it's like Purdue has gotten a lot better about that. And I think that's where they've really hung in these games, battled, and, mainly won. Obviously they've lost, 3 road games, but, as far as Ohio State goes, when they lost that game, that team has a lot of talent. And there was a perfect storm and they lose the game. And then, you enter in this weekend on CBS again, go win at Michigan State. So it's like, it's an awesome home win and an awesome road win, so you can tell it's like they believe in their coach. And it's showing up now. Like when they got down 6-7 points, they were not phased. And so like, that's going to go down if people think, well, that's a terrible loss. Well, all of a sudden, like Ohio State's like 15-12, 15, something like that. Probably something not making this tournament. They'd have to make quite a bit of a run. But, now they're starting to knock a few resume things out there. If they win maybe some games they're, supposed to win and maybe knock off a couple of people in the Big Ten tournament, you just, depends on what happens in other games. So it's like they have the pieces to beat a tournament team.
Yeah.
They beat Alabama earlier in the year, they've have some, they have 3 of the best, wins in teams. They have better wins than a lot of teams around the bubble.
Oh, absolutely.
They just, so it's one of those things. It's like, oh, they're going to think, oh, okay, well, Northwestern, they lost on the road in overtime. I mean, who does that? Like, well, basically everybody's done that, Nebraska hasn't lost a home game other than a non-conference game. I think it might have been like Creighton somebody beat them. I think Creighton beat them like pretty bad. Rivalry, whatever, Creighton's a good team. They get it going, they can fill it up. But I don't think they've lost any other game at home besides that game. And it's like, these are tournament teams. Ohio State's not quite one, but it's like, after a while with the schedule that you play, it's like you're going to lose games. You mean I never say you like want to lose games, but you learn nothing from just winning every single game you play. You face no adversity. You look at the Gonzaga team that lost to Baylor. That team that was undefeated. Baylor kicked the crap out of them, and obviously some of that was like they played better teams every single game, day in, day out, and they had NBA players on the team. Gonzaga had some too, but everyone's like, oh my God, is this going to be the first undefeated team in, since the Indiana Hoosiers in '76? And it's like they played him and like Baylor like punked them. That game was over quick. And it's like, so it's like, what do you gain? Like they would have almost been better off if they lost the first round of their WCC tournament and then maybe a refocus. Now, maybe they wouldn't have beaten Baylor on that night. They probably wouldn't have. But, it's just one of those things like you want to face adversity.
Yeah.
You can't, as a player, if you get fat and sassy, as Matt Painter likes to call it, you get, I don't want to say complacent, but like when you just expect to win, you'll stop doing some of the little things. You may not pay attention to the detail on the scouting report. You may not get that rebound because you understand that every possession is important in a basketball game. That might not seem like it when you're up 10, but there's always a point in a game where you basically, going to win the game based on one play. And sometimes that's the first half, first 5 minutes, first 20 minutes, last 3 minutes. You have to make that play. And if someone outworks you, you just, you're in trouble. So like losing makes you outwork other people. Keep you sharp. Absolutely.
Anything else from the Rutgers? I think the other thing that stood out to me was obviously
Coleman had a nice little. He had a little.
Yeah, I was going to say like the reserves coming in. I think he kind of had a chip on his shoulder. I don't think he necessarily thinks himself. He sees himself as a end of the bench guy. So I'll be interested to see where that ends up. As we get into the tournament, where the rotation, is cut down to. And I feel like
getting bogged down in Maui, and he came in bang, bang, bang against Gonzaga, and he changed.
Yeah.
So he's going to have. I think him and Hyde are going to have his moments because there's you throw in Lance Jones and a little bit of Smith, but there's only two guys on the team that can go out and kill you from three and get their drive to the rack and finish on you. And those are the two guys. Yeah. And they can do that against very athletic anybody in the country, I think.
Well, it's just, and the other thing is it's basketball is so much about perimeter versatility and them being wing players. I really think that Heidi and Colvin, they just bring different dimensions to the game. And you just hope that they're trusted. I think they have the ability. You just hope that they're trusted to win a defensive matchup, to win a possession defensively, and not hurt their team. And
well, Heidi's pretty darn good at defense, and Coleman is much improved.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about those two players particularly is that neither one, especially really Coleman, neither one are I think afraid of the moment. I think that Heidi probably plays a little bit more within the system at this point. He's been a year in the program longer than Colvin, obviously, and a different background, and we can go into that detail, which is certainly probably stunted his growth, probably more so on the defensive end than anything else. But at the end of the day, those are the kind of people that go in and win into the tournament games, because there's nothing more demoralizing when somebody catches you by surprise on what happens. Like when someone throws you like a look you've never seen. And you can see some of the best teams in the country, it's like even a team as good as UConn. They went in there, Creighton hitting, the crowd's going nuts. I mean, that's a lot of it, but Creighton's hitting threes, and it's like, it is demoralizing when you just see someone just make shots or make plays that it's like, you might even play good defense on it. It's just, and when you throw that other little wrinkle, it's like, if you game plan for this, this, and this, and then something that happens, it gets you out of sorts. So even when the other people get back in the game, you don't trust yourself. So that's why he made a big difference, I think, in Maui, because it's like, wasn't really on the scout, came in and did some stuff. And it's like, man, like we didn't account for him at all.
Yeah.
And even when he comes in, he might be accounted for some, but it's like, he won't. I think that they're both capable of playing within the system, but also outside of the system if it came to that. And I think those are the kind of people that help you win in March and win, championships and such. So, I'd like to see Colvin get a little bit more run, and maybe that'll happen. But if you've noticed, when he's come in, he's been instant offense, and you're talking about sometimes going 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 games not playing at all.
Yeah.
So you gotta like that, and that is, as a player, that is so hard. Even a guy like First coming in, he's a hell of a player, and he just, he comes in and still does productive things. Like you can see some things where his shot might be a little shorter off or a little bit rusty. It's like he goes in and battles and scraps for rebounds. Like he does effort stuff, and like effort is contagious. And so if you do winning basketball plays, this is a guy 9th, 10th down the bench that would play for a lot of teams starting, even has for Purdue, so like I think Purdue just wants to win. And I think everybody's bought into that. Everybody wants to get their shots and do this and do that. But it's like, for the most part, I think Purdue, like things aren't really upset as far as the chemistry wise, despite, what people have said or think or, what have you. And I think everybody is going to be called upon, in some capacity to help Purdue win the whole thing, or get to, at least get to the Final Four. Like, there's going to be somebody that has different people than go up and have that game. That's going to be a difference maker. And I literally think that the disappointing way that the games have ended the last few years, like Purdue's tired of hearing that shit, and that, like when you get a very talented, very skilled, motivated team, that, like motivation is everything, and it's there. So.
Yeah. No, it was overall an awesome night. Moving on to Sunday. I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch this live. I had volleyball all weekend with my youngest. So as this game was happening, we were actually she was playing. So I didn't get to watch this one live. But I was blown away by the crowd when I was watching it.
On TV, it legit sounded like a home game, and then it was even more so than it even sounded.
Yeah.
Like, there's actually one point early in the game, there was a play where it went out of bounds, and it was like off of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a cheer. And I'm like, these fans not realize that ball was off of them. They thought like it was like a 50-50 call.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Purdue's getting the ball in bounds, like, oh, damn. But, there's like, nope, they do. And and it was very pro Purdue, which is awesome. I mean, but I saw something online where I was, on goldenblack.com and saw something online where tickets were going for like lower level seats to that Michigan Purdue game because they were on spring break some, and because they've just been very underwhelming and a disappointed Michigan season, obviously. And like that they were going lower level seats, I think for like $75 is what I saw.
Oh wow! So
if you think about like if you took like a family of four, you like going up to Michigan River, take a family of four, gas, if you say like or whatever, like go to one of those games, you can probably get out of there like gas, food, hotel, whatever, like $600-700 for a family of four overnight, whatever you want to do, and then have a weekend in in Michigan and watch your team play. Whereas like those are going for like $400 a seat, lower arena, Mackey Arena.
Oh,
I mean,
That's a deal. I'm seeing.
or even upper 250. Even the game I watched Purdue play Penn State, I was able to get a really good connection where I got it at lower arena, which I've only done a couple of times in my life, and I've been to, like I said, 600 games at Mackey, and literally the upper arena tickets were going for $250 for Penn State.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's for family fourth $1,000, mediocre seats. I mean, there's really no bad seats in Mackey, but not elite seats, not lower level. And you could have done the exact same thing for half. And I know it's Michigan, but I mean, Purdue fans are going to jump all over that.
Yeah,
literally the difference is
I think
if the Cubs are playing the Reds or playing Milwaukee. If you're a Cubs fan, it's cheaper for you to go watch them play at Milwaukee or play the Reds than it is at Wrigley. You can't hardly get a ticket. It's outrageous, but you can go watch your team play for a quarter of the price.
Yeah.
And a great seat,
in the car. Yeah.
I mean, so that's what is it, about 5 hours to Ann Arbor, 4.5, 5.5, something like that, maybe.
I think it's that far, honestly.
Yeah, it's
4.5, maybe.
Pretty reasonable day trip. I mean,
yeah. No, especially if you don't have to drop $1,000 to go watch the game.
Yeah. I mean, for real. I mean, 75 a seat, and that's why it was, part of the reason why it's a takeover, because Purdue fans, we've got friends trying to get tickets to games. It's you can't really get them. You got to either know somebody or pay out the wazoo, pay all the fees of third party stuff.
Yep. It's wild.
But it was that was nuts. I can't believe that it was the discrepancy was 75-25 pro Purdue, which is a testament to Boilermaker fans. Honestly, they've always traveled well.
Yeah. So with the your thoughts on it, what stood out to you? I think we just got done. We didn't necessarily, but a lot of people just got done shitting on Fletcher Lawyer, up to the Rutgers point. What did you see on Sunday from him that's maybe a step in the right direction?
Well, he missed a couple shots, but kind of like what Painter said is just keep on taking the good ones, and it makes your coming your way. He won coming out of high school. He won the national 3-point shooting contest, I believe. I'm almost positive he won the national 3-point shooting, call it for high school seniors. When they did, I think just like last year, I think Cohen Carr edged out Colvin in the dunk contest, when they have the 3-point and whatever, so out of high school. And so, Colvin, and Cohen Carr is everybody's blowing up how great of a dunker he is, and he is. He's ridiculous. But Colvin was runner up and lost him in the finals, So, but going back to that, I'm almost positive Fletcher Lawyer was the high school 3-point champion in that 3-point shooting contest, the national one that they do for So talking about a guy that can really light it up very quickly. And so he's an elite shooter. So if you just get those people, just get their head up, they're and I think it sometimes does affect certainly parts of his game, because when he's ripping those, his defense is it just brings Purdue to a whole nother level, because I literally think his defense amps up to where it's like I said, he gets in the passing lanes, a little bit more loose ball action, maybe just. I don't think it's necessarily a fight through a screen harder, but it's just I feel like he just is more mentally locked in when that happens. And like I said, he's probably always mentally locked in, but he missed a couple shots, got fouled, got to the free throw line, made some free throws, and then it's that's one of those things that I was just saying earlier in the podcast. When you watch the ball go through the net, I've always actually said when you watch people and it's you get a really good player and they get a drive to the basket, and a good player, you'll notice they might just goaltend it or block it anyways if it's a foul and the basket's on the ground, but they'll block it anyways. It's almost when you're even a guard and you drive to the basket and you miss that layup that like I said, maybe you got fouled on the ground, wouldn't have counted, or they just pin it against the backboard, or you don't watch that ball go in. It's very impactful. like watching the ball go in as a player. And so just the 2 free throws, which if I had to have one person shoot free throws on the whole team, we've got some very good free throw shooters. You notice like Lawyer always shoots the technical. So it doesn't matter how you shoot, like he shoots it like if you watch him, like when he shoots it, like I expect it to go in, and that's maybe if he's having like a terrible shooting game, it like he's the one shooting them. And that tells you everything you know from the confidence that Matt Painter has in him. Because like I know that free throws are different than 3-point shooting, but it's like he's in his zone there, and so like he made a couple free throws. Then I think he did rip a 3 almost right after that. And then early in the second half, there was the sequences going back to me like having that cover that we didn't get. Purdue was up 12, and they get it to Fletcher I think he missed a 3 in between there. And then he gets to Fletcher, Lawyer, to make another 3, which he made, but they called like an on-the-ground foul on Edey off the ball, where they actually had to go to the monitor and make sure it wasn't like a hook and hold. Actually looked like a hook and hold, but they just called it a common foul.
Mm-hmm.
Got another pop there, whatever. And honestly, it was almost like simultaneous. So it's one of those things where it could have been a 3-pointer and a foul underneath. But if that's the case, then he has another one go in, and now you're just talking like he gets that second 3 in some of those free throws. Now you're on a little bit of a mini run where it's like he's going to be feeling it off those curls or whatever. And I just think that like that's going to be a springboard for him. Now he still has up and down offensive games, and that might even continue even into March. Like, hopefully not. Hopefully like it just gets going or whatever. But I think because of the way he's defended and the way he's scouted and just like really getting physical with him. The other thing you notice, like Lawyer also will go to the basket, taking the basket. So sometimes like he's been doing that, but then getting fouled on a layup or not making it or whatever. He actually had a couple of drives where he did make. A couple of those should have been and ones didn't make him. So like if those go in, once again, driving to the basket gets your confidence, going up the easy basket. And so like I thought he actually played a lot better. He still gets killed from a lot of people. In fact, even people that we're good friends with. And it's like, to me, it's like, I get it. And everybody sees Heidi's efficiency and athleticism and what have you. And he did string some nice 3s together, and he has early in other games too. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at like what like Fletcher Lawyer can do, he's the kind of person that's like, he has the ability to demoralize you. I think that Heidi down the road and certainly maybe in spots can do that. But you look at him like some of Purdue's big wins early, Arizona, Tennessee. Those are games they don't win without Lawyer. I mean, they just, he gets like 27, 26 burger, and all of a sudden it's like, and so I think the most important thing going forward is like, it seems like somebody's always stepped up and filled that role as like the 3rd or 4th scorer.
Yeah.
Braden Smith is actually just, his confidence is just through the roof, because now it doesn't matter whether you try and hedge, try and like sag back on Edey. He's just worked it around to where like he's going to prod you to get what he wants from you, whether it be an assist, whether it be a shot. And, if you sag off him on a curl, he's just not going to hit a 3-pointer on you.
Yeah. I mean, as a point guard, I mean, he was 3 of 14 on Sunday. But if you can still orchestrate the game the way you want,
they're demoralizing.
Yeah, they're big makes, but 3 of 14 for most players, especially your point guard. If you're taking 14 shots and you have the ball in your hands that much, how
many assists did he have?
11. But that's what I'm saying. Like, so there's probably another half dozen hockey assists where the ball's moving.
Absolutely.
So I mean, to be 3 of 4 to overcome 3 of 14 and it not be a negative for your team. Not many teams have that in their back pocket, and nobody has 35 and 15 from their big man, and it looks that easy. It's
I didn't even look over at Jen. I didn't realize he even had 35 points.
30. Yeah, 30. It's crazy.
I mean, it's like it is if you think about how remarkable that is, like it's very hard. It's like really enjoying the ride here, which I believe on John Rossi today, Matt Painter was on there, and Edie's definitely not coming back for his COVID year. He's definitely gone, which is not a surprise to anybody that follows. But it's like, I think it'd been funny to wait till April Fool's Day and been like, yeah, I'm going to come back to Purdue. He really should have done it then. And then like the next day come back and say, no, it would have been hilarious. That would have been an all timer. Cause like people in the Big Ten would have been like, I think I'm just going to quit. Like, it was like, I wasn't going to retire, but I've seen enough of this crap. Like I can't do it. I just can't can't guard the dude. So, but yeah, like when you're saying like Braden Smith, and he had a couple of like, like not great turnovers, like, cause sometimes he just does a little much because he's so good. And when you're that good and that confident, you usually can get it. But it's almost like his passing is ahead of who he plays with.
Yeah.
I mean, no knock. And people gotten better. They've gotten more used to it. But, some of these passes, like, you've already talked about it in years upcoming, well, some of the athletes and talents are coming on, like next year's Purdue team. They're going to take that and do a windmill jam going down the lane. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be nasty, like nasty.
Yeah.
They'll get it and they'll finish, and it's going to be unfortunate for you.
Yeah. I think that, the way that Braden plays, it's hard for me to even say what I'm about to say, but in many ways, I think that having Edie on his team obviously makes up for a lot of mistakes. Sure. But I really think that when Edie is not there, you're going to see his true talent as a point guard, running a little more wide open offense and putting the defense on their heels and making the right read. I think that the best part of his game has always been his passing. But I think he's just going to be a very balanced player for the next couple of years. And it's going to be exciting to watch. As much attention as Edie gets from opposing teams, I think that there's going to be an adjustment period for Purdue's opponents over the next not couple years, but first part of next season for sure, where they are breathing a sigh of relief, and they're going to be in they're in for a rude awakening. Because they're going to see some athleticism that is pretty uncommon in the Big Ten. I
don't want to say that people will be like, damn, I wish Edie was there again. But I think they're more predictable now than they will be in the future. And I also think that, like, I know that sounds crazy because you're talking about a generational talent, but people understand who's coming in. And, like, we'll be going, like, 5 out. And it's going to be, like, I think with the skill and athleticism combined, there's certainly never been, like, a Matt Painter team that's going to have that upcoming where it's like, we'll just beat you in a different way. But it's going to be kind of like the more like how the really athletic dominant teams in the NCAA tournament do, where like you just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very hard to stop Purdue runs. Like they go on big runs now, but they're going to go on runs where I think it's going to be, 17, 18-0 runs.
Yeah.
Many times in a game, where, at least a few times a game where it's like, and going back to the Michigan game, even now, different team, of course, that's going to become the future. But like, Michigan was up 7 points early in that game. And I think Purdue went on like a 17-2, 18-2 run. And then that game was over.
Yeah.
Like, then, like we got, obviously we won the game by 8, but we were at like arm's length the whole time. Once we got up by like 7, 8, 10 points, it was like 10-13, like the whole time, like right there in that double digit where it's like every time they made a play to make it to like 9 or 8, Purdue bumped it to like 12, or like vice versa. And it just like and then fouling out, all their front court. And so that's just The difference is I think Purdue is really, wearing, Edie wears you out and does some things that way, and obviously gets, Purdue the free throw line a ton, and he's just like, I mean, I even heard it today from a coworker. They won't be named, but I was like, Edie is like a unicorn because he actually thought somehow that he'd heard that Purdue lost, and I was like, well, they actually lost last Sunday, not this Sunday. And he's like, what happened, man, with your boys? And I'm like, oh, we won, and it was like, oh, and it's like, someone told me, and I was like, yeah, and they won. But I was like, he's a generational talent. It was like, well, man, he's a big guy. Like, he can't really go out and shoot, threes. And he's like, like Wimby, that's a unicorn. Because I said Edie was a unicorn. I'm like, yeah, he is a unicorn. But it's a different, like, Zach Edey can actually shoot. And I've seen it in warm-ups and what else. And he shoots like, he doesn't do that at Purdue's team because that's not what's going to get you beat. I mean, he's not fouling you out of a game shooting 3-pointers. He's not getting rebounds shooting 3-pointers. Like, why would you take away your best weapon, their strengths? Like, it's not like he's not capable. He's actually a decent shooter. I mean, you see it from the free throw line. He's a very, very good shooter. I mean, incredible for his size, the best free throw shooter ever, really. I mean, I would say, right up there. I mean, he certainly shoots free throws on a level that it's beyond any big guy I've ever seen. Certainly anywhere near that big. But like, he's going to have a role in an NBA team. There might be a good handful. I'm not really sure who those are. I don't follow near like as much as you do, but he's going to have a role because he does things that are going to help you like win in spots, in the NBA. But he can actually shoot. He just doesn't do it on Purdue's team because like if he shoots, now you're might be suffering on the offensive glass.
I think that just watching a ton of NBA, I do. I think that your post players are, your Joel Embiid's, your Jokic. They really operate. Yeah, they can shoot and they can pass, but what makes them dangerous is being able to. It's not so much that they have to shoot threes. It's that they can operate just as effectively from the high post as the low post. Yeah. And having that versatility as a post player in the NBA, it really is about the only. I think the misconception is you have to be able to shoot threes now as a center, and that's not really the case. There's not a lot of volume for that. But if you sit and watch the game, you really do have to be elite in the high post as well as the low post, and then offensively, and then defensively, you have Edey is going to be make or break for him if he's able to switch. If he's able to switch in the pick and roll game.
Well, and if you've watched him from last year to this year. You're talking about like if he makes that jump, after this year, but like next year, he'll be just fine.
Yeah,
I mean, his footwork now is a masterclass on anyone of any kind of size. I mean, it's like no one else can do it.
It's just if you have to switch out on a guard, and I understand the length, but. They're reading your foot, and their first and second step are already beyond a center that is quicker footed, like a Joel Embiid. He gets hunted in pick and roll situations.
Sure.
And I don't think that Edey is at that level. AD Anthony Davis from a defensive standpoint. As a big, and he's not nearly the size. He's probably in truth 6'10", 6'10 and a half.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6'11".
Insanely
crazy wingspan. So he is playing the 5 for his team, but he's about the only player that is in the NBA that is impervious to us, being hunted as a big. He's a unicorn in that regard. I think that once Wimby gets more experience, it's not even real. I mean, you're talking about a player that if Edie had to guard Wemby, Edie would have to use his low center of gravity to box him out because Wemby's 4 inches taller than him.
Well,
He's not 4 inches, but he's a solid 3
what would
inches.
have to happen is he'd have to get him in foul trouble on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my point is, like, if he goes in there and he gets him, he could frustrate him in a way that he's never been. Like, I think that's the thing with Edie. It's like he can probably frustrate you in a way that you haven't been frustrated before. Because it's like he's just, what do you do? I mean, like, and we're talking about Purdue, college basketball player. Like, what I watched Klingon, a handful of times, in over the course of the last, couple of years. And like, I watched him and he's got some decent moves or whatever, but I think Edie would eat his ass alive. Like I saw him against other people and it's like, and he can get to, it's sort of like, like when they had like Drew Timme last year and it's like, you couldn't guard Edie at all.
Yeah, Drew Timme is not on a roster.
No, but I'm saying that's like, Timme, you're saying like great college center.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could not even, Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson will get eaten alive by Zach. He already has a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Look at now. Like, Dickinson's gotten somewhat better, but how much better has Edie gotten?
Yeah.
I mean, how many national players of the year get like markedly better? Like, honestly, when the season started, he was like plus to win it and the favorite, but like still like, and I thought like, I actually think Purdue's going to be a lot better all the way around. So I thought his numbers were going to drop so much that it's like, I don't think he has any chance of winning it. And the thing about it is like, he's just more efficient, like way more,
Yeah.
And so, and he's just dominating, but he's just so much better with his footwork. It's like, he does it in a way it's like you don't even know he has 25 points and 14 rebounds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've never seen anybody get like a 25, like 13, and it's just like, how much did he impact the game? And he impacted it a lot, but like you don't even, it's ho-hum. It's literally like, and that's not a normal thing. That's ridiculous college stats. And, in addition to the fouling, you like getting your players fouled out. And, I mean, like he's a generational college basketball player.
Yeah.
For what he is.
It'll be interesting next year. But oddly, I'm encouraged and excited. I don't know.
Matt Bader's got a factory going, man. And literally the biggest thing is like, you got to break through this year. Got to, obviously Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. Hopefully win the whole damn thing. But it's like breaking through fun. I mean, like everybody's going to say, oh, well, you didn't win it with Edie, right? But it's like there's something to be said, especially as a coach, that validates knowing you've done something right when you break through and get to that Final 4.
Yeah.
Because then it's sort of like, I can do it. It's all working. Clearly it's working regular season. I mean, I don't think there's any question that Purdue's been the most dominating team, not before March, the last 3 seasons. I mean, I think it's, if you go look at that resume, it is probably the best 3-year run non-conference resume or even conference resume, if you combine it all, that any team has had in years and years and years, maybe if ever. But the biggest thing is you got to do it in March, and unfortunately that's a one-off. That's how the sport is judged. And you know what I mean? Like I have a very good feeling about this year. I don't know if that's, hopefully we'll win it all. I have a very good feeling about Purdue making the Final Four this year. I will say that. Like when it gets there, depends on who you're playing, depends on what you got to do. But like, and the scary thing is like, even Edie said it in the post game after Michigan. It's like we're just trying to like win, and like we got tons of room to improve. And if that is your mentality, if everybody on your team and other people said that too, it's like we've got lots of room for improvement. And it's like that shows me that like you don't think you've peaked and you can get more out of and that's, you got to have that hunger. You got to have that hunger. You got to stay away from complacency. And I think that with Lance and some other seniors, like it's just like we know what we need to do, and if we get on one of these runs, and I think we're capable of, like, we play our A+ basketball game, it is going to be terrifying.
Yeah,
when we play, I mean, terrifying. And that game really, I don't know that game's even happened this year yet. There's been some moments and halves and maybe 10-minute run where it's been like, bam, but it's like, I saw flashes of that when we played Arizona.
mm-hmm.
And Arizona's a damn good team, and they're going to probably, I think they'll be a 1 seed. I think they ultimately will end up a 1 seed, because I think, we can get into that later, but it's like they had a moment there in that game where it was like Arizona was like, damn. And then the whole thing was like, well, their guards are so good and long and a lot of length and very athletic. How is Purdue going to keep up? And the reality was, like, they couldn't keep up with Purdue's guards.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that falls on, like, I've not seen it happen yet. I've not seen any one player even come close to stopping Braden Smith on doing what he wants to do. Now, he might have a bad shooting night. He's turned over the ball over some, but I think a lot of that's been on him. Like, I literally think defensive doing a lot of things, like some lengths and things where it's like really coming after whatever. But I've not seen anybody stop Braden Smith from being the maestro of the orchestra yet. Not yet. Yeah. And I don't think they're capable, because the way he plays, he just kind of prods at his own pace. Like he just really navigates the game and in a way that I've not seen really any point guard do. I've seen a lot of really good ones, like Sheed, Houston, excellent. And he's a senior, so there might be something to be said, but it's very similar, and that's what it comes down to. The point guard play is phenomenal, and it's 1 year. They're a year older, and he just gets it. And the thing is like, his confidence on a jumper changes the game, because, like, you can't just sag off of him and let him pass, get in the passing lane. He'll shoot a shot on you, and it's like, coach, they look over the coach like, what do you want me to do? Like, either like let him shoot a shot, or he passes to Edie for a dunk, or out for a 3. And so on the games where Purdue's hitting what they do this season, which is now the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country, mind you, of 41%, overall games, not just Big Ten, that's overall games, and it's also the Big Ten. Like, you're talking about the second best rebound, or efficient team, differential team, and the best 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
That's, and with that all sitting all on cylinders, you're not beating Purdue.
Yeah. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. I think that that takes us to next thing I wanted to talk about, which was just where we're at